Hello, this is Carlos Henriquez, who is running for Boston City Council District 7. We're here to ask him two questions on Boston Public Schools. So the first question is, what do you believe is the current state of the Boston Public Schools? A, what grade would you give it now? And B, what grade would you give them when Marty Walsh started 4 years ago?
So I think, well, thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity. I think that public schools have a lot going on. So to grade it overall, I would probably grade it about a C, C minus right now. I think when Mayor Walsh took over, it was probably at about a D. We had a lot of underperforming schools, a lot of level fours. Some of those have been turning around, but we still have a long way to go. So C minus, while it qualifies you to as a passing grade, it's not exactly where we strive to be. So I'd much rather be able to grade the city and our public school system on about a B, or at least honor roll is where we should be. We should be leading education in public schools if we can do it in our private universities. Um, so yeah, I mean that's the simple part of it. But I think there's so many different challenges in how you grade it, how you grade the school. I think it's subjective to each person. So depending on what school your child lands in, there are certain schools in District 7. Well, District 7 students can go to school almost anywhere in the city. So if you land in a high quality school, that's great. But a lot of the schools in District 7 are underperforming schools. So you see a lot of 3s and 4s in terms of their almost turnarounds or their turnaround schools. And those are an issue because there should be equity across the board in terms of the education that young people receive in our city.
All right, thank you. So the second question is, what specifically are you going to do to improve them? A, how many schools are you going to visit? B, what programs would you add or subtract? And C, how much more money, if any, do you think the schools need?
Well, that's a deep question, so I'll try to take it piece by piece. When I was a state representative representing parts of Roxbury and Dorchester, I made it a point to visit as many schools as possible. So as city councilor, I would continue to do the same. So I think it's about visiting the schools, number one, and meeting leadership, meeting the principals and headmasters, also talking to parents and finding out what their needs are. I try not to treat schools as one big entity. Each school is different. Each school has a different building, independent leadership, independent needs. Some schools are more fitted for special education. Some schools have bigger class sizes than others, different facilities. So finding out what the uniquenesses of each school, I think, is important to really assess the schools first. And I think that's what we need to do as a city is really have a flatline assessment of each school and really starting at the basics. Is it a healthy building? Is there clean water? Is the air clean? And work our way up. Are there supplies in the classrooms? Are the critical positions fully funded? And then as you figure out what the obstacles are or what's needed, begin to build consensus not only with the administrators and the teachers in the school, but also the parents and the students. And I think with those four groups brought together around those issues, you can then start to bring about that change, whether it is bringing in more funds for supplies or whether it's you identify that there's no guidance counselor in that school or maybe you need a librarian. I'd like to see some more stuff done standardized across all public schools. I'd like to see more guidance counselors, more culturally competent guidance counselors. They're individuals, so you hear different stories about those that are more encouraging and supportive and those that aren't. I'd like to see more emotional support around trauma services in District 7. A lot of times we go to meetings and you meet young people and you ask them, have you lost a friend or family member to violence? And many of them, probably 80 to 90% will raise their hand. And I think how we learn through that is a challenge. And I think that schools being kind of a hub in our community need to offer some of those services or be able to refer students and their families to those services. I'd like to see recess for our smaller children. Even as adults, we work a 6-hour shift and you get you work a 4-hour shift and you get a 15-minute break. You work 6 or plus, and you get a half hour. Young children need to get up, they need to play, they need to move around. These things are shown to be healthy and help education, along with healthy foods. And there's so much more. There's a laundry list that we could go through. But I think it starts with an assessment and going school by school. I would like to see, one of the things I would push for as a city councilor, and there's a couple of ways I'll talk about how I would do it, is making sure that we reach the 25% goal, court-mandated goal of having teachers of color, and that runs the spectrum of different ethnicities. But that is a goal that has been on the books for a while. Well, it's not a goal, it's a mandate that's been on the books for a while that we haven't reached. So part of that is to energize the residents of District 7 to make that ask and demand. The other part of it is doing something that I did when I was a state representative. I organized elected officials that represented those same communities, from Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury, East Boston, working class communities, And there was a group of 12 of us, and we were able to go to Mayor Menino and ask for specific policy changes. And I think that in that solidarity, in that consensus around what the top issues were, you're able to move the needle a little bit further, a little bit faster. And people that are dealing with education, they're giving you their most precious resource. They're giving you their child. So we don't have time. We don't have 5 years or 10 years to get it right. We need immediate results, and this requires leadership to act with a sense of urgency. So those are kind of the things that I would push for and make sure those are funded. Finding out what the critical needs are, and are we funding guidance counselors? Are we funding healthy food? Do we have it across the board for all of our children in each school?
All right, thank you. This is Carlos Henriquez, who's running for Boston City Council District 7.
Thank you.